Hey, welcome Coaching Success Radio. Today I'm going to talk about why and how I started my Strategy Success Mastery program.
As I build my coaching business, I want to know how to effectively serve clients and make more money doing it. This podcast will pull back the curtain to reveal exactly how successful coaches are building their empires. Join me as I engage with top coaches from all over the world to discover their secrets. No theatrics and no theory, just real life strategy. My name is William Winterton, and this is Coaching Success Radio.
All right, so if you've been following and kind of watching a little bit about what I'm doing, I have launched a beta group, actually launching here in about a week, that is called the Strategy Success Mastery Program. I've been talking about it on the outro of the podcast as well, and doing a lot of Facebook marketing for it. I'm really looking for just a group of about maybe 15 or 20 coaches. I'm not looking for a huge group because this is a program I'm looking to launch out here over the next, maybe the next quarter. But I wanted to get some people to go through it, test it out, give some feedback on it, get some testimonials, and then I wanted to polish it up and then have it ready for the general public. That said, I've had several people asking me about the actual process for building out a beta group and what it's taken and why I'm doing it and how I selected it as far as like what I was going to coach on. So let's talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the actual strategies behind the beta group. Now, I won't go into too much of what the product is as far as actually the success strategy session is and all that stuff. If you want that training, you can still sign up. I have a couple of spots left. If you're interested, you can go to strategysuccessmastery.xyz and you can sign up. It's a free 3-day program. And when I say 3-day, people have been asking a lot of questions about that as well. I left that kind of vague because even going into it, I wasn't sure how long I was going to make this thing. But 3 days is going to be about an hour, maybe an hour 30 each day. So it's not going to be 3 full days, like 8-hour days. Just 3 days of day 1, day 2, day 3 training. So if you're interested, you want to learn more about how to make your strategy sessions actually a lot more effective and less salesy, so you don't sound like a sleazebag when you're on these things, give me a shout out at strategysessionmastery.xyz. You can join the handsome crew that is already there, and we can get this thing rolling probably second week of October. So let's talk about this. How did we start this off and how did this thing go? So there were several options. First of all, I've done some rollouts in the past where they are much bigger, and I try and get people to come in, and I try and launch 50 to 100 people at one time and do kind of a rollout campaign and all that kind of stuff. This, I really wanted to do something else. I really wanted to do a beta test of this because I feel very passionate about getting this project right, and I don't want to throw it in front of a whole bunch of people at first if there's still some bugs. And so what I'm basically doing is, instead of doing a paid program, I'm rolling out this for free as a beta program and test it. So that's the first thing I would say, is that there's nothing wrong at all with creating content and then just asking for feedback. A lot of times we feel like it has to be perfect before we do anything with it. It has to be just absolutely right. I mean, seriously, my website is just basically a 2-page funnel. It's a opt-in page and then a thank you page, and that's basically it, right? There's not a whole lot to it. I've done just very minimal marketing on it on my front of putting it out, and just really reaching out to the people who I've either coached or have had on the podcast, or people that I've had close relationship to. This is not even a cold market, people who I've just connected with randomly on Facebook. This is pretty light group, and people who I trust as far as their opinions and that sort of thing. So, but that's the important thing, is getting people's opinions and getting people to actually give you input. So part of that process is to give them something valuable. You have to give them something really valuable. I'm taking your time for doing this, right? I'm taking time out of your day, out of your coaching. If you're working part-time and coaching part-time, or if you have other clients you're serving, or just whatever you're doing, there's something else you could be doing besides going to this masterclass. So I want to make it super valuable, and I want to make it super, super appealing. So I'm giving away a lot. I'm having some contests, some prizes. I'm doing everything I can to try and make people feel like this is something that's worth being a part of and worth giving their feedback on. So that's kind of the first thing, is that I have to get the people and understand that, look, they're doing me a huge favor by coming on and evaluating this and giving some testimonials and feedback and that sort of thing, right? The testimonials will be great for helping to sell the product, and that's awesome. But more importantly is that feedback. Is this worked? This was cool. I didn't like this. This needs to be redone. That kind of thing. So I really recommend jumping in, getting advice, getting opinion, and even if it's incomplete, even if what you're producing isn't done totally start to finish, that's okay. It's better to have something out there, have people test it, and just be honest, be open and upfront. Look, this is an incomplete program, all right? I've got like 90% of this done, and the reason it's not finished, in a sense, quote unquote, little quotes with my hands here, the reason it's not finished is because there are certain things that I don't know what's the best way to go. And if I get a lot of positive reaction one direction, I might veer off this direction instead of that direction. I might spend more time on the mindset work than the actual sales script work, for instance, right? So there's things I haven't completed out because I don't know what is the most valuable to people. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time working on something if it's going to end up being, it really wasn't that valuable. We didn't really get a lot out of that, right? So it's okay to have it incomplete. You want it mostly done, but you don't need to have it totally finished. The other thing is that whenever I'm doing this, people have asked why I'm doing the strategy session or the sales calls or the onboarding sessions or whatever, right? Client conversations. There's like a dozen things that people call this. And basically it comes down to this. I have a core belief that you need to be able to walk that line between taking somebody and bring them into your messaging, into your marketing, and into your little world, right? Through your organic marketing, through your conversations with them, through whether or not you're a blogger or a podcaster, or if you're just, YouTube or whatever you do to promote your brand. You need to get people from that point, get them onto a conversation. If it's a one-on-one, typical 1 hour, strategy session, discovery call, whatever you call it. And at that moment, you have to decide a bunch of stuff. There's a whole lot of stuff that has to go through your mind. You have to decide if this is the person you actually want to work with and somebody that you're actually going to be able to help. If they have the right problem that you're going to be able to solve, you got to make sure that they are actually going to be people that are going to appreciate your coaching and want to help and are going to do the work. And you have to go through all that stuff and figure out where they're at, what's your program, if it can actually be the one that's going to help them, or if there's a better place to put them. And then you have to go through and make that moment where you're going to ask them for, money. You have to actually go through and say, yeah, are you going to commit to this thing? And commitment requires them actually writing out a check or, whatever, I guess, going through your credit card and giving a credit card number or paying through PayPal or whatever, actually committing financially to this coaching package that you put together. And you have to be able to sell it in a way that is authentic, it's credible, and it feels like them keeping their money is not as good as them parting with their money and getting something way more valuable in return. It's very difficult to do if you're new at this, or if you've been doing this for a while and you just feel like your prices are stuck at a super low rate and there's no way you can possibly raise your prices. This is primarily what I deal with coaches all the time in my coaching, is that people get stuck and they feel like they can't possibly charge more, or they can't possibly, onboard more clients, or some people just can't afford them, or some people just aren't the right fit, even though they are. They just give them a bunch of excuses why they're not. And it's hard on that phone call because you have that one shot to really figure out and read somebody over a phone. It's incredibly challenging. So what I've done is I've basically said, okay, this is important to me. I have to close somebody, or else my entire effort of marketing to that person was for naught. Now, there is a process and a follow-up system that I use with people after I've gone through and had a conversation, and if they haven't closed with me, there's still a follow-up process that I go through with them and can onboard clients that way. But this is like where most of the clients will come from, is from this one-on-one strategy session. So I figured, look, this is super important to your business. This is the lifeblood of your coaching business. If you cannot onboard a client, you don't have a business. You don't have profits, and you aren't going to be around very long. So I decided to pick this up, and using the information I've gotten from dozens and dozens of interviews with lots of different coaches, using my experience for 7 years, using a lot of online training, a lot of scripts that I've read through, a lot of the strategies behind sales, behind the conversation, closings, all this kind of stuff, and then the authenticity, and just really diving in deep and researching this stuff. I find myself incredibly fascinated by this conversation, and I feel like it's something I can truly help people with. So for all those reasons, it felt like it was a good fit. Now, I'm going to tell you something right now. I have not always felt like everything I've done is a good fit. Even in my coaching, there have been times when I've been, I'm not sure that's really what I want to go into. Let me give you a good example. I had a client early on a few years ago who was very interested in building up his Instagram space, right? He was an artist and thought that that was a great way to build himself up. And so he wanted to know how to market on Instagram. And initially, I was thinking, well, yeah, let's figure it out. And I went on and was looking through and helping him and thinking through basic strategies that really doesn't matter what social media platform you're on, if you're on Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest or whatever. Some of the strategies are universal across the way, right? Connecting with people organically, getting interest in your posts, getting people to interact, getting people to follow you. The idea, the premise is there. But the way that you do that on a platform like Instagram versus a platform like LinkedIn, very different language, very different audience. And to be honest, I'm not super familiar with Instagram. I have an account, I have a few thousand followers, but I've never really done anything with it. It's never really been my bread and butter. I'm not particularly interested in the platform. I'm not a big fan of it for my own reasons. And so I've just never, wasn't really in the right spot. But for a brief while with this client, I tried to help out and got some results, but basically what I ended up doing was I went on, found a few people who are masters at Instagram and got them to put their heads together and work with this guy. And he ended up hiring one of them and, basically let me go and worked with them, which was perfect because I wasn't, I don't want to work with somebody that I have to work that hard on to figure out the answers to. So that's the next thing I would say is that if you're going to be working on developing content for a program, if you're trying to put a course together, if you're trying to put a mastermind together or a training of any kind, make sure that you're doing something you genuinely love to talk about. Make sure it's something that you want to spend hours and hours answering questions about and that you're passionate about and that you get excited about. And if there's something that comes up that you don't know the answer to, you're actually invigorated and excited to go out and learn, some strategies and some answers to that problem, right? That's how you know this is something you're landed into. It's the same kind of a principle when you go out and try and find your ideal client, right? I mean, my ideal client right now it's coaches who are struggling to grow their business and trying to organically scale themselves, trying to make 5 figures a month and can't do it or stuck in their own barriers, their own mindset, and they can't seem to scale. So that is my ideal client. And it's somebody who I talk to on the podcast, somebody I talk to in my conversations on Facebook. It's somebody that I can relate to very, very well because I was once in that position. That being said, I don't have the answer to everything that every client in that situation is going through. I have my skill set that I'm able to do, and I have a lot of tools and resources. But as time goes by, more and more issues come up and certain things happen that I've never encountered before and certain issues and certain problems that I've never dealt with before. And I go, I didn't know that. Interesting. So I have to go through and keep learning on my own business. Now, there come times whenever, just like this Instagram scenario, where I'm not particularly the best person to answer that, the best person to want to work with that. So would I ever want to have a masterclass on Instagram? Even though I know how to get traffic, I know how to start building up your social presence, and I know how to start, engaging people to some extent. I've got some pretty good success and track record behind that. Instagram's really not the platform I want to use for that. It's really not, I'm a Facebook guy. That's really where my bread and butter is right now. And I can get around on Instagram, I can get around on LinkedIn, but most of my traffic comes through Facebook and Facebook organic marketing. That's where I have the most success, and that's where I feel most comfortable teaching. So again, if you're going to pick out a course or a program or a masterclass or something that you want to go into, grab something that you're already super excited about and even dial in further. Again, I'm really into these, getting coaches to make more money, but dialing it into something super specific like what I did with the strategy session. This is one piece of what I teach. This is one area of my training. And the reason I'm doing all of this now, the reason I've created a masterclass for the strategy session, why would I do that? I'm creating it because I want to find people who are struggling with this piece, because probably if they're struggling with this section, there are other similar sections of coaching that they struggle with as well. So this is being built out as a tool for people to come in, learn about strategy sessions, learn how to do it well, how to overcome objections, how to read people, how to interact with people, how to engage in a way that is authentic and not salesy, all those things that we struggle with. But it's also designed to be a very nice entrance into the rest of my programs, right? Like if you're going to go in and you're going to want full coaching from me, This course that I'm putting together here, this strategy session mastery, is going to be a much more inexpensive session. It's just a piece of what I teach, but it gives you a taste of how I teach, gives you a taste of my style, of my authority and what I know and what I can help you with. And it gives you kind of an insight to what working with me would look like. So the last thing I would say here is that I take what I'm doing anyway and I break off a chunk of it, and I take a chunk and I go in and figure out all the issues that I can think of with that piece. And I try and even dive deeper than I go to in my standard coaching. I do typically an 8-week program with somebody. And through that time, I have a whole bunch of modules and I have a whole bunch of training that I go through with them. But I want to go into this masterclass and I'm going to dive as deep as I can to really give rich content that solves this issue, from A to Z. Just covers everything about this so that they see the value that's being provided and they go, man, I really want to work with William on a much bigger scale. Right? And so that's kind of the ultimate plan. So I'm going to test this beta group. I'm going to see how the content's going with this, and then I'm going to roll this out and make this available at a pretty easy, to swallow price point. It's going to be a nice little way for me to make a little bit of money here and there, just very, very little to try and make myself, recoup some costs. But overall, it's not about making money in the front end. It's all about making money on the back end. So when you're developing your content, take something you're good at, take something you like, take a slice of it, roll it out, and use that to springboard people into your full course, your full training. This is basically how I've been rolling it out. So we're going to see what happens. This rolls out the second week of October. Again, if you want to jump in, strategysessionmastery.xyz. There's a link down here in the podcast notes as well. Super excited about it. And I'm also going to follow this up, let you know how things went with the training, and super excited to see where this takes it.
Hey, there's nothing worse than going through all this time and work, learning about how to coach, learning about how to market yourself, get your message out there, organically connect with other coaches, pay for advertising, do all the things we need to do to market our business, and then you finally get on that sales call and you freeze up, you choke up. You're so concerned about how much you're charging and you're just freaking out about telling them how much it's going to cost. It's not worth it. Listen, there's a simpler way, and I want to show you a very simple strategy to help ramp up your sales calls, your strategy sessions, your onboarding sessions, whatever you call it. I want you to go right now to strategysessionmastery.xyz. You're going to sign up. There's a free 3-day mastermind that's being held in October, and it's going to help you get past any of the barriers that are stopping you from onboarding high-ticket clients, because let's face it, if you do all this other work and you don't actually get the clients, it's not worth it. So go to strategysessionmastery.xyz right now and sign up for the 3-day masterclass.